Hi, I'll be covering the training module on debriefing in OnTrack. So OnTrack is a proprietary technology that iNet Realty uses, and OnTrack is our main source of technology that we use to manage transactions, manage our sales contacts, also to collaborate with one another on a team. In this scope, I'm just going to cover one aspect, which is debriefing. And what debriefing is essentially to take a moment and to write down the important aspects of any interaction, whether it be a phone call or a meeting that you set or a meeting that you've completed. And the reason for that is it helps you in many aspects. If you're in sales, it's going to help you actually make more money by debriefing and work less. It's a habit that you have to form. And to do this debriefing, you're going to go ahead and go under actions in this section here. And there's a link here called debrief note. Now, just some of the sections that you need to be aware of. You have the contact information here, and certain instances of OnTrack can vary and be a little different. Some of the custom fields here on lead management, you may or may not have access to that. Address information, description, any emails that have been sent. And then under this section here, where it says activity history, will be all the notes that you'll save and what we call a debrief. And you'll see this in a descending order. You're going to see the oldest posts on the top, and as you scroll down, you're going to see newer posts here. Now, it's important that the way you debrief to make this function for you, you go ahead and click on, going back up here, action history on debrief note, and I'll come up with a new window. And what you're going to have here is you're going to have the first part, although it says to do, this is going to just be your subject line. And you're going to write something that's relevant. So I'm going to say, let's say, training on debriefs. And this is something that would signify what is this debrief going to be about, and anything that's helpful for you. And what you're going to do from here is you're going to write in bullet points, and that's a best practice, in bullet points what this is about. So, covered training, spoke about the location of debriefing notes, and impressed upon users the importance of debriefing. And that'd be an example of how you would go about debriefing. And then all you would need to do at this point is just hit save. Another quick trick is if you're up on the to-do section, you can hit enter. And to jump up there very quickly, you can hold shift and tab. It'll jump you back up to that key section. You can hit enter. So keyboard enthusiasts, you can do that and do it without touching the mouse, or you can go ahead and use your mouse and just click save. From here, what you'll find is the debrief will be here, training on debriefs, and everything that I illustrated on the debrief. And that's where you're going to find it here. Okay, so it's time-stamped. You know who did it. If you're working in a collaboration, you can see other people. Let's say Carolyn had debriefed other notes here. And so you can work as a team and communicate and know exactly what's going on with any contact or transaction that you're working with. Now let's kind of go back and cover, again, the reasons why it's important. I talked a little bit about, in a general sense, why it's important for sales. In an overall sense, these are some of the things that you need to know why it's important. Why is it important to debrief? One, better communication. It's just, if you're working in a team or you have a transaction coordinator helping you, or you're doing the role of a transaction coordinator, you will be better off communicating through debriefing and just logging any type of correspondence that you had. So if you have an email, it's not uncommon to copy that email and paste it right into a debrief. That way you have a permanent record associated to your contact. Another reason is you're going to have just better service. It's very difficult over time to remember everything, especially if you're doing multi-transactions and you just can't remember everything. And so being able to debrief will allow you to have the ability to have nearly instant recall. And so for sales, that matters because you're building a relationship with your prospective clients, and you want to be able to know everything that's important about them so that you're able to have the right rapport or service them the right way. In a transaction, it's important to remember all the details and what's going on. And so this is a very easy way of dealing with this. And one last note why it's important is CYA. Even if you do everything right, many times something goes wrong, and it protects you by having a conversation log, by having just all of your notes on one system. I can tell you more often than not, when I've seen, it's not necessarily always who's right or wrong that wins. What I find is many of the case is who's better documented wins. And so if people understand that have been around a while, they realize, yeah, if I don't document things well, then I can't really show what's going on. So debrief is an important part of CYA as well. One note also to make mention is that you have the best experience using OnTrack using Firefox. So Firefox is a browser that you can choose. You can use Internet Explorer and Chrome. Unfortunately, there are some loopy things that happen with those other two browsers and some of the feature sets that we have in OnTrack. So Firefox will give you the best experience. Also, I just want to reiterate some of the best practices for debriefing is to bullet point it. Some people will write long paragraphs and stories about what's going on. And the problem with that is you want to be as quick as possible and as efficient as possible when you're going through your contacts to read the debrief so you can see what's going on. For example, let's see in this case, met with Brian for BP. That'd be short for buyer's presentation. And let's say you just, you want to just write what your impressions were or what's going on. You could say, great guy. We'll meet with Joe for pre-qual. Super motivated, as a smoking hot wife. And that's my wife, by the way. But what's important is to realize that, okay, I can read that very quickly and remember what this is about. Another neat thing is if you put any MLS numbers in your debrief, it'll auto-translate into a property page for you. So you'll be able to re-look at it, and the property page that loads is a live link. And so this is something that's live. If it goes into pending or it's sold, it'll tell you automatically. So this is helpful as well if you just populate it with MLS numbers to say, well, these are the properties that I showed someone, or I had made them aware of these properties. It also protects you in procuring cause cases. Now I want to go ahead and cover some advanced features in debriefing. And you may notice that in some of these sections you see that, okay, I see that, oh, this is big, bold, and blue. And then this color is red. And although this is a little more advanced, or here's something that's underlined. Oh, this is a little more advanced. It's not too difficult. And in future versions, we'll make it a lot easier. But in the meantime, it just allows parts of your debrief to stand out a lot more, particularly when you have a lot more debriefs, you want certain aspects to stand out. These are just some useful hints that I'll cover with you. And this is all HTML. You can put the HTML code in the subject bar or the to-do bar, and then in the description on your debrief section, you can put HTML in there as well. And so I'll give you some of the common things that you can do. So if you open it this way, and that command means to start an underline. And so what's helpful is to say, okay, if I'm thinking about next steps and I want to have that as my header, I'm going to start that with a less than, greater than sign with a U in between, which means starting to underline. And then when you slash U it, it's going to say end the underline here. Now I'll give you an example of what this means, and I'll do this repeatedly. So example, and I'll save this. And what you'll see here is on the bottom, you see, okay, next steps, underline. I'm going to go back and edit this. And I'm going to bullet point this. I'll say, okay, number 1, number 2, number 3. And from here, I want to have more emphasis. And so another command that you can do is B for bold. This will say bold text, and /B is to end it. You can also combine things. If I say, okay, I want something bold and I want it underlined, I can say bold, underline. And I can say end the bold and end the underline. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. And you'll see that, okay, I can see that here's my original header just with the underline. Here's just bold text, and here's bold, underline. One thing I find really useful is changing the subject line. And the nice thing about browsers is it saves how you've written down things. And so the command would be font, color, and this would be an example that I'm using here. So you're going to start the command with the greater than, less than sign, and you always have to finish your command that way too. And it's the slash of the command that ends it so it won't continue. I'm going to say color equals blue, size plus 2. And so I did this once, and I'm going to go ahead and change this section here and say, large text example. And I'm going to save this, and let me show you what it did. It's going to go ahead and say, oh, okay, it's going to make the font size 2 times larger, or in a larger font size. Plus, it's going to change it to the color blue. Now, you can have fun with this. You can do other things with this, like red. And what would size 4 look like? And you're not going to usually break anything, so you're going to be okay here. Again, this is just HTML code, and if I scroll down here, I can see that, oh, okay, that's a really big example. Now, if I don't close and end my commands, and an example of that would be, let's say I forget to do this font, and I say save. And if I save it here, what's going to happen is that OnTrack's going to think, oh, you want to continue all the way to the end because you didn't put it in. Now you notice that everything's big and red and not what I wanted at all. So if you ever catch that, you realize, oh, I see what had happened. I forgot to end it. And in this case, it's font/font. Again, once you type it once, you can see that, oh, it's going to remember it. So if I just start typing, the less than font, it's going to come up with some of the examples that I've done in the past, and I don't have to remember all of the code. But the code would be, font, a color if you want, size if you want, put your text in between the tags, and then of course end your tag here. And this is an advanced feature set. I'll go back, you can see that everything's fine now, and it's going to end just in this section. But look how it just pops out, and if you have dozens, if not hundreds of debriefs, and you said, and this is something that's really important, I want it to stand out, then that's the way that you do that. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this basic training on debriefing in OnTrack, and if you have any questions, please see your team leader, and they'll be happy to help.